Call to order this regular Board of Directors meeting for the Siloam Springs Board of Directors, September 19, 2023. Roll call.
Blair.
Here.
Smiley.
Here.
Wiles.
Here.
Hunt.
Here.
Rissler.
Here.
Allen.
Here.
Carroll.
Here.
At this time, I would ask that you all please stand with me as Director Carroll leads us in prayer, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Father, tonight we are here and we give thanks because it's through you that we have covenant through your Son, Jesus Christ. You have declared victory over death, sin, and sickness. We can claim this as individuals in the name of Jesus. And we thank you for that. And we can also look to you as we make wise decisions for this community, for our families, and we can see all things done according to your will. In this we give thanks in Jesus' name.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, I would like to ask that anyone that has an electronic device, please silence that so we do not have an interruption. And I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the time for public input. I would ask if there is anyone that would like to address the board on any item that is not a regular agenda item. If you would like to do so, please come to the podium, give us your name, your address, and you will have 3 minutes. So is there anyone here? Yes, sir.
James McGurk, 412 West University Street, Siloam. This is something I brought to the board's attention 3 other times. I seem to see a lot of the city employees driving around here lately because I'm out on the streets a lot for some reason. And we have 2 bucket trucks, both men in the bucket trucks not wearing seat belts. 4 electrical pickups, nobody wearing their seat belts. Parks and Rec, pickup that pulls a trailer, nobody wearing seat belts. How many times do I have to come and do this before y'all do something about it? I've been told to mind my own business. It's none of my business, but I think it is my business. So I appreciate it. I mean, what I do every day, I have to wear a seat belt or I'll lose my job. And I think that'll happen to them too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else?
Blake Jones, 1105 Courage Street. Is this my paper up here? Can we pull it up? Yeah, that's it. So this is the federal lawsuit I filed against the city. It's also Siloam Springs, Benton County. You can see Alan Gilbert, Derek Spicer, Officer Corley. And unfortunately, I told you this was coming, but you didn't listen, so this is what I had to come to. So I just have a statement for you before I go. But it says, I stand before you today, a free man. All charges against me have been null processed. Once again, your hatred for me has failed. I've beat Siloam Springs and everyone involved, not just because I'm smarter than you, but God does not stand on the side of the wicked, and he has shielded me and protected me from your unjust prosecution and your persecution. Better is a little with righteousness than great revenues with injustice. You all should learn that. You will bear witness to all that I have told you. I brought a copy of the lawsuit, which you can see here. I filed not to brag, but rather to say this moment is here, and you have forced my hand. Just know that the reason I'm free and the charges were dropped is after lying for over a year about redactions, Alan Gilbert told the prosecutor that the officers muted their microphones. So on 4/4, on April 4th, when the board and Mr. David Allen asked Jay to explain that, well, he told you that, so I just looked it up before I came here. He said that the board, that he and the chief had reached the same conclusion on the information he reviewed. He said FOIA requires these redactions to be made. Just know that they continue to cause the city great problems, and you're allowing them to continue working in the city, and the roles that you leave them in make all of you just as culpable. So I've told you over and over, and here we are. We have Lockhart, we have myself, we had Lancaster in here, and you can see there's just more and more problems, and they just keep coming. And they're not coming because per se you guys are bad people. It's because I've told you, when you have individuals like this and you allow them to be in positions of power, and people come to you and voice their complaints and you do nothing, well, this is the result of that. So when these individuals, the problem is that they said, well, you know what, this video is redacted, all of you heard him say that. But then the reality was they're saying the officers muted their microphones. Well, the problem with that is they were doing a criminal investigation over someone trying to murder me. And that's the pieces of shit we have working here, right? And none of y'all can say anything about it because you all know. So at the end of the day, when this comes through, as it's already been processed by Judge P.K. Holmes, the same one for Lockhart, just understand that you asked for it by doing nothing.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Is there anyone else?
Hello, it's Katie Renard, 702 East Delaware. I'm talking loud, and I beg you to talk loud. I tried to watch 4-hour meeting where I couldn't hear. I know you don't realize that, but the microphones there don't come across when it's recorded. That's my first plea. My second is I wanted to come before you and just ask you if you could be open-minded and reconsider what the city staff brought to you in their efforts to seek grant funding for the East Main Street project. I really think it's important that we consider this area going into our downtown, and I did send this in an email, and I won't read it all tonight. However, the actual traffic counts coming from RDOT show that an average of 9,500 cars exit onto East Main from 412, and then by the time it passes toward Lincoln, there's still 5,900 cars on the road. And the way we go into East Main is the thing they see on their way to downtown. I realize that the original plan at Kraft and Tull provided doesn't need to be done, but it could be reviewed, and you have all the notes and everything that were provided to you from that meeting during that time. There was a committee, and we met with city people, city employees, so those records are there. Look at that again and see what it said. We've got grants coming to cover it. The underpass was going to be funded by Arvest at that time, but this wonderful grant that the staff has sought out because of their own initiative here could also provide us with all the money we need to take care of the East Main Bridge all the way up. And I just hope you could consider it and go ahead and fund what is needed to do the further work, because even if we didn't get the $10 million plus grant, we could implement it a little bit at a time. When I moved back to Siloam Springs 8 years ago, I did live here and raise my children here. When I moved back, I chose to live on the east part of town. I wanted to live in a diverse community, a place where there was lots of excitement and it was historic. The plat for the area where I live that goes all the way to Gunter was platted by hand in 1880s. So that's a long time that part of town has been here. And I do know that we have sidewalks and roads that need to be fixed, but we have money in our 80 million plus budget to do that work, and this money would not take away from that. It's already planned. So we wouldn't have to do one and not do the other. We could pursue both, making this a better area entering into downtown, and even do it incrementally without just abandoning it and saying that we won't do it. So I beg you to be open-minded, to take a look at the information again and make your decision based on that. And I was part of the original effort So I remember businesses coming down that were on East Main who were very excited about it. So we all have different memories as time goes by, and certainly I'd encourage you to just consider reviewing this and funding it. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else? If not, is there anyone that would like to address the board on any item that is on our consent agenda? If there is not, then we will move on to the consent agenda. And before, well, I'll go ahead and read it. I'm sorry, yes.
Jeff Farmer, 21923 Davidson Road here in Siloam Springs. Now, I'm not quite sure if my problem is in the consent agenda or not, but it has to do with our Mission Hills request for final plat approval.
It is on the
It
consent
is.
agenda. Yes, sir.
I've got a few things to say about it, you know. I've got, of course, me and my wife Tammy, we own a place there on our place there on Davidson Road. We got neighbors there, Pam and Johnny Sled, which are the properties which are right just due north of Mission Hills. And in talking to Johnny and Pam today, and Tammy many times, we asked that the board not approve this final plat permit by Rush Coleman for Phase 2 due to the fact that the drainage issue for the 38-acre development into our private properties has not been resolved. It's been addressed as far as, you know, it's already been proven that it's a volume of water where we're having a problem, whatever, through their little weir dam that's there on the north side of the property. And they've taken and put sandbags in front of all of their intersections where their storm drains are at with the Phase 1 project. Now the Phase 2 is going to be that many more sidewalks and driveways and roofs and things where water's going to be rushing down the street, needing a place to go. Now they've built these things, these storm drains, and somewhere along the line they're going to be jerking these sandbags out of there, and we're going to have more water that comes down our direction and gouging out our private properties down here just to the north of them. And we brought this up to the last time that we had that we visited about this. Clayton Taylor and I visited with Don Clark for quite a long time about what needed to be done. Now, the last time, after I got this letter that we're going to have this meeting tonight, I called Clayton. I was visiting with him, and he pretty much told me that he's done talking with Roush Coleman. And I didn't pry or anything. I didn't know exactly what it was all about. But I know that he may be done with him, but I don't think me and Tammy and Pam and Johnny are done with him. We'd like to visit with them about this problems they've got as far as all that water rushing down between our properties and gouging out holes that hold water. And in the summertime, the mosquitoes are just everywhere. You can't walk, you can't brush the water without them boiling. Larvae just boiling around. But anyway, that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Is there anyone else?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I would like to take letter F off the consent agenda.
Okay. Can I read the consent and then, so that we'll know what it is,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then
Yep.
we'll pull that? Is that acceptable? Okay. So, with that, I will read the consent agenda. Item A is the Town Hall meeting minutes, August 24, 2023. Item B, regular meeting minutes, September 5, 2023. C, dedication of utility easements, 3300 block of South Elm Street. D, resolution 5223, final plat development permit, Stubbs Subdivision, 2603 South Lincoln Street. Item E, resolution 53-23, final plat development permit, the Commons Edition, 2000 block of Don Hill Road. Item F, resolution 5423, final plat development permit, Mission Hill Phase 2, 4,000 block of North Country Club Road. Item G, Resolution 5523, final plat development permit, Fox Meadow Subdivision, 600 to 700 block of East Lake Francis Drive. Item H, Resolution 56-23, setting hearing date for easement and alleyway vacation, 800 block of East Jefferson Street. Item I, Resolution 57-23, waive signage ordinance, approve MOU Runway Group. Item J, pre-agenda meeting minutes, September 13, 2023. That is the consent agenda. So Director Allen, you want item F removed, is that correct?
And letter E as well.
And letter E as well, okay?
Madam Mayor,
And,
could staff also request removing letter I from the
Yes, sir.
consent? Thank you.
so letter I will be removed for separate input. Is there anyone else?
Letter D.
D? Anyone else? If not, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented with items E, F, D, and I removed?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Smiley,
Yes.
Wiles,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Whistler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Motion is approved. So we will take these in alphabetical order. That would be item D, Resolution 52-23. Mindy?
Okay, I just have a question of clarification on this one. I think there have been concerns expressed by some of the directors about a road just north of this area having a lot of drainage issues. So are we okay? Everything's set here? We've got this all taken care of? So that's not going to be an issue?
Madam
Director Blair, I think, was the one that has brought those up.
My understanding is, and I asked some of the people in that area just recently, that it's not all resolved, but it's being worked on, and it's part of the drainage issues that we talked about in the pre-agenda.
So there's plans within this development to
Right.
help? Okay,
Yeah,
Okay.
supposed to be. Hopefully, it goes according to plan.
okay. I just want to make sure that we had that on record. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, do I have a motion to approve item D, Resolution 52-23?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Wiles,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Whistler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Blair,
Yes.
Smiley.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next is Resolution E, which is 53-23. Allen? Director Allen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've just got a question. We had a neighbor in the foyer asking staff, and this question's come up many times before, why can we not, as planning or city, ask what is the minimum or maximum home size that is planning to be built on a lot? I know that's always been our policy that we tell neighbors that we are not allowed to ask that, but is that just policy, or what is the situation on that? Because I don't believe a developer is going to go into the work involved in a full plat if they don't know the size home that they intend to allow built or that they are going to build. And then the other question I have, at the bottom of the first page of the memo, it says the preliminary plat was approved by the city board of directors on February 1st, 2012. Is this correct? 11 years ago?
Ben?
I think it was 2021. That must have been a typographical error. Apologize.
It's not 2012?
No, not
Okay.
2012.
Okay. I just thought that was a little odd if
No,
it was true, so I
That
wanted
was
to.
a typographical error. We
Okay.
apologize.
And can you also answer David's question about the home size?
Yes, well, the part of the issue with that is it's not a city regulation to state, what type of house size. We're asking the applicant information that's pertaining specifically to zoning regulations, like lot width and that type of thing. We're not going into details such as the house size or design and things of that nature. I would add that the Home Builders Association went down to Little Rock a couple of years ago and basically passed a state statute that forbids cities from regulating any type of design on housing. So even if we as a city wanted to say, okay, houses have to have dormers or certain color brick or certain type of garage door, we would not be allowed to do that. And so that pretty much limits our ability to ask questions like house size. So
Is the house size topic, is that included in that? I mean, I can understand them saying, we don't want all green houses with purple shutters and that kind of thing. But in terms of size, you would think per lot that the city would have some question that could at least be addressed by the builder.
I mean, I think we
A
could
minimum, I'm saying.
we could ask them for sure, but they're not bound by that. They could say, oh, we'll do 2,500 square foot homes, but if they pull a permit for 1,500 square foot, we can't tell them
Right.
you can't get that permit.
But when we're down to approving the final plat, surely that they are going to know more than when they got the preliminary plat. And that's why I didn't know why we couldn't know more, is what I'm saying.
The other
Just because the neighbors start asking,
Right.
yeah.
The other challenge is that sometimes developers sell the lots to other
know.
builders, and so they don't even know themselves what will actually be built on the lots.
But we've seen a lot of developments like this Mission Hill where they're building all the homes themselves. And so they would definitely know. So it was just a question that I know, Ben, it's come up probably 2 or 3 decades as to why, neighbors can't get that information or the board can't get that information. So I just wanted to know for sure.
Ben, sometimes when they have a homeowners association or they have, and I can't remember what it's called, but they do have specifications that the home cannot be less than. Covenants. Yeah, the covenants. Is that right? I mean, that doesn't play into it, but that comes into effect, I would think.
But that's all separate, right? Covenants are not associated with the city.
That's correct. Yeah, we don't require those. That's optional. And that's the square footage is something that the builder or the developer could offer, but it can't necessarily be part of your consideration on voting yes or no. And so that's why we kind of avoid that question during the process.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
So, Madam Mayor, pardon my ignorance. So, like, a whole neighborhood of 1,000 square foot houses could be built right next to a neighborhood of 5,000 square foot houses?
If the zoning allowed for it, that would be correct. And kind of the flip side of that, say you had the exact same development come through under 2 different developers, and one said they were going to build 1,000 square foot homes and the other said 5,000 square feet, and then you can't approve one or the other, so that's why it's not part of our decision. So the decision is based squarely on the zoning for the lots in the subdivision and whether it meets those standards.
Okay. I'm just thinking of, like, when y'all are proposing a new lot or whatever, and I don't remember the verbiage, that it is consistent with the surrounding houses or whatever. To me, that says they're going to be around the same size. Is that accurate?
Yeah, Ben Rhodes again. Yeah, there's, I would say, a correlation between lot size and house size, and that's just economics. Usually someone wouldn't buy a, quarter acre, half acre lot and then put a very small house on that, because this doesn't make sense with the economy of scale, if you will, you're wanting to buy the smallest lot possible if your intention is to put a small house on there. Otherwise, the price goes up. So there's not a mandate, but you can get a correlation so that, for instance, the subdivision we looked at just recently, the Dogwood, or Blackberry Meadows, those were 1 acre lots. So we don't have a rule to say they can only be, what size house would be on there. But logic would dictate that they would be bigger homes because those lots are in turn larger. So that's really how we would focus in terms of zoning on what type of lot sizes are appropriate in different areas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Then one
Yes,
other thing
David.
I was just going to mention, Ben, on the development here, I'm not sure who it was that was digging the dirt and laying the street and et cetera, but this is the first one I've seen where they came right out and dumped all their dirt right on top of our sidewalk, kept our sidewalk covered for, my gosh, months and months and months, and that's a heavily walked street. And people were having to go out in the street and because they couldn't walk on the sidewalk because all these mounds of dirt were covering it up. And then on the driveway, they just tore all the sidewalk up and put hard giant rocks of chat for people to try to walk across. Is there anything that we can do in the future to prevent this from being done? I know that they've come back since and they've kind of dug into our street and tried to put some new asphalt and they've laid a new sidewalk, or it looks like. But for a long, long time, it was really an inconvenience for our walkers up and down Don Hill. Is there something we could do where we fine them or something? Because that was just something I'd never seen. It was really uncalled for.
Kevin Moore, city engineer. I can't speak specifically to fining. I will say that this was a rarity and that there was already a sidewalk there, because typically that's done at the end of a subdivision and then there's not something there to begin with. So that's something that staff would be more mindful of in the future, to make sure that either in the construction process or on the plans itself, it's called out that be preserved for as long as possible during the project.
Yeah, I just couldn't figure out why they were digging and laying dirt so far close to the street to the point of actually covering up the sidewalk. It just made no sense. And they just didn't have any care about people walking across the messed up drive that they built. So I just hope we can keep that in mind in the future, that if it ever happens again, we do something about it. So, thank you.
Anyone else? If not, do I have a motion to approve item E, Resolution 53-23?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
excuse me, Blair,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Wiles.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next would be item F, Resolution 54-23. David?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I have sympathized with the homeowners on Davidson Road having to deal with the overflow drainage from what is essentially half of the total that's going to be there, and now to be approving the other half when the drainage problem has not been addressed. We can have them put detention ponds, but it's not fixing the problem. And it's just putting more asphalt and more building pads to prevent water drainage, and it's just going to be a huge, huge mess. And I think until we have this developer address this and do something about it besides sandbags, I can't support this in any way. It's been talked about till we're blue in the face, and it just seems to get pushed off, and the homeowners to the north on Davidson are the ones that are suffering for it. Their backyards turning into ponds.
Madam Mayor,
Yes. Lisa?
do you mind explaining the issue so that we completely understand what's going on? Because when we looked at that issue over on Lincoln Street, we did find a way to make the developers work with us and get that where it's not running off onto the neighbors. Is there anything that can be done in this situation that's similar?
Kevin Moore, city engineer. There's nothing specifically that can be done towards rerouting the water at this point. I will say that my understanding, and the developers here, and they can speak to that, but my understanding is that they've satisfied Mr. Taylor at this point. And then the sandbags are an erosion control measure, not a measure to control the water itself. So those will come away from the subdivision once everything is done being disturbed and has been stabilized.
So is it causing more drainage onto their property
The sandbags?
with everything that, the development that's going on out there?
The volume has increased, but the peak was controlled by the detention pond. So it's the same amount of maximum water flowing across the site, but over a prolonged period of time.
Yeah, if anybody can explain this where we can, yeah.
Sure. Taylor Lindley with Crafton Toll and Associates. We were the civil engineer on the project. The main point of conversation with the north half is just the phase one ponds. Anything with phase 2 that's being voted on tonight drains to the south, or at least a large majority of it. So it won't add any more or change anything on the north half, these properties that we're discussing. As Kevin pointed out, the peak flow is controlled below pre-developed flow rates, and it is meeting all design requirements for the City of Siloam Springs Drainage Manual. And the developer is here as well. We've worked with the different property owners over the past couple months and come up with different ideas and solutions and things to be implemented in order to assist. But ultimately, we've designed per the City of Siloam Springs Drainage Manual requirements. And like I said, the phase 2 portion is not draining through this area. So, and furthermore, on the erosion control measures, like he said, those are there to keep sediment and extra, dirt, trash, whatever from the actual construction of the homes out of the storm infrastructure. So once all the homes are completed, those sandbags will be removed.
So when we approved phase 1, that's the part that's causing issues for them?
That's correct. Yeah, everything to the north is phase 1. Everything in phase 2, I believe everything in phase 2 drains either southeast or southwest.
Sorry, I'm writing notes.
No worries.
Madam Mayor,
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm a little bit
Okay.
confused. Phase 1 is what's creating the problem? Or it's creating the water?
Creating the water, it's not even creating the water, it's the water's always been going there. And so we designed a detention pond to hold back the increased runoff from the pavement, basically. The pavement that was installed with phase 1, the pond was installed, and it controls the peak runoff, which is the flow rate of the water across the properties. And that is matching the pre-developed flow rates.
So you're telling me that the runoff and the water is at what it was pre-development?
Correct. The rate of the flow, correct.
Rate of flow.
So,
Go ahead, sorry.
Betsy?
so you said phase 2 is draining south and southeast. Is that creating issues?
No, not to our knowledge. And is there a map or a plat that we could put up on the screen? I don't know if I didn't know if that was in the slides, but I could point out the southeast corner ties into the existing storm infrastructure along Country Club Road there. So it will run under Country Club into some detention areas, I believe, in the apartment. Oh, sorry, I could have swiped. I didn't realize I had control. One more. Should be, yes, there you go. So that southeast corner, the area down there, that's the pond for the majority of phase 2 there. And you can see the pipe that kind of runs diagonally across Country Club from the pond.
Can you point out Davidson Road on that?
What do I use? Is this pen mark on it? This work? Okay. Davidson's, actually it's way off screen up here. So these are the properties, that's where the pond 1 in phase 1 drains north, and it runs through these properties out to Davidson. And that's where the water was always going from this site. This site's kind of a mound where water sheets off like that in a lot of different directions. And so the water that was already heading there, we're just containing within a pond, controlling the peak flow rate that's discharging onto their site. Now I don't know how to erase any of that. Okay.
Anyone else?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Kevin, I know it's been a while since we've discussed this, and I may be thinking of something different, so please correct me. Is the runoff from this the issue we talked about crossing 43?
Kevin Moore, city engineer. No, those are two separate subdivisions.
Okay.
So yes, 43 was Oak Brook subdivision, if I recall correctly.
I know we talked a little bit after the meeting, and for some reason I just couldn't remember exactly. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, David.
Sorry, Mr. Crafton and Tall.
Sure.
On the first Mission Hills Phase 1, how many building lots were in that one, do you know?
I don't recall off the top of my head. I mean,
It says there's 55 lots in Phase 2 on 10 acres. Is that 10 acres just where Phase 2 is?
that sounds correct. Then that means there would be close to it looks like 65 in phase 1. There's 120 total.
Okay. Yeah, I honestly don't understand how you can expect, or anybody could expect, that the water flowing off a bare piece of property is going to equal the same as it is now, because there's some detention ponds on the northeast and southeast corners, and that it's not going to any more affect anybody to the north or to the south for that matter. There's a huge housing development there, but there's a massive housing development building right now to the west. And all these homes to the north and northwest of this Mission Hills 2 have been there for decades, long time. And we're just saying, sorry, part of being in progress. I don't see how we can claim that it's the same flow as if there was nothing built on this property.
So the detention areas are intended to restrict flow, and that's the design of that outlet structure is designed in such a way that we analyze, here's what the peak flow is pre-development as it is, grass field. There's a number assigned to that flow rate. We then design the outlet structure to match or lower that flow rate.
I understand that.
And so
I understand what you're saying.
And through this as well, I believe the Sled's property is this one. The Taylor's property is north off the screen, so above the word preliminary. They're up on Davidson. The majority of the runoff from our site would flow through those two properties. It clips Mr. Farmer's kind of in this corner, maybe a little bit further north off the screen as well. But as he mentioned, the developer has worked with Mr. Taylor and has gotten everything worked out with him, and we're not aware of any pending issues with the sleds as well.
Okay.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
As Taylor said, they went by our codes, Crafton and Toll. Now I'm copying David. I've tried to correct him in the past. It's Crafton Toll. Crafton Toll went by what we have, and we have had discussions. We're going to change. Are we possibly going to be changing some of this?
Our new requirement considers volume for the first 6 hours after a storm as well. And I will mention that both of these ponds were oversized, so they're close to meeting that mark.
That you're going to present to us anyway.
I'm sorry?
That you're going to be presenting to us.
The new.
Yes, we're already requiring that new standard now moving forward.
Oh, okay. I thought we had okay. Okay. Yeah, I want to hear what Mr. Farmer has to say when it's his turn to speak. He'll get to speak next.
I was going to ask Mr. Farmer as well. If everything's been taken care of, why are you and Mr. Taylor still having problems? You want to come up to the podium? Not to put you on the spot, Jeff.
That's all right. They've taken care of, I guess they've taken care of Clayton. All I know is he wasn't going to he wasn't gonna have anything else to do with it.
If you're gonna have to
talk
talk
into
into
the
the mic,
Okay.
please.
That he
Thank
wasn't
you.
gonna have anything else to do with them, you know. I didn't pry, I didn't ask him if they had settled or they'd give him some kind of concessions or whatever. But nothing between me talking to Pam and Johnny today, nothing has been nothing has been discussed with them or with me. I mean, regardless if it's 100 foot of my property or 100 miles of my property, it's still being gouged out with the volume and the speed of the water that comes out of that little weir dam that they have up there. It's the same kind of issue that Clayton had when we addressed you here months ago. But it's just where he was having runoff issues and sediment issues and washing out driveway issues. That's not what I've got. I've just got scouring out where I've got all this red clay that come out of this addition right here has acted like where you seal ponds with red clay. It holds water now. And it holds water, and there's mosquitoes just go crazy in there. In fact, if it rains tonight, we can go out there in the morning and see where all the water stands, which didn't naturally stand there whenever it was a field, whenever it was pasture land and such. There was enough dirt, there was enough ground to actually soak in the water.
Well, there are other detention ponds that have been being built for the last 25 years around the city are not lined with clay. They're not meant to hold water.
Yeah.
They're meant to detain water and slowly drain it out.
This was when you scrape down, you know, they cut a hillside down. We had a crown in the middle of this field. I've lived there 30 years, so I saw all this happen. Saw this cut down, and where it used to have, maybe 7 or 8 acres that would actually come my direction down this little natural drain. Now we've got half of the development, and it's not slowed down by anything. It's all tile, it's all 3-foot tile, and there's many of them that actually comes into that retention pond. If you want to call it a retention pond, it doesn't hold anything. It squirts it out as soon as it gets it through the little weir dam that they have built there that goes into Pam and Johnny's property. So I hope I've answered your question there, David.
I remember when this was first being developed before there were any homes or streets or anything, and the top layer had been scraped off, and I'd seen the overhead shot, and it was just one bright orange clay property.
Yeah. And that's what Clayton had his problem down there at the where his driveway is at. I bet you there's probably 8 inches of red sediment down there.
No, it's the county's problem on that street.
Yeah. Yeah, because we are not in the city limits, we are in the county.
Mr. Farmer. So, did you hear what Taylor said about the runoff will be going south instead of north on this specific phase? Did you? So
All I know is that they've got, whenever we first had our little problem here with the first final plat approval, I know right after me and Clayton talked to Don Clark, I know that those sandbags were put in front of the intersections where the storm drains was at. And then that didn't happen until after we visited with them. And what I'm wondering about is whenever everything gets all settled and they get houses in there and they get all these other non-soaking up type of ground, when they got like sidewalks and driveways and things, and they open somewhere and sometime they're going to pull all them sandbags out of there, and then there's going to be a torrent that comes through there. And right now, with all the problems that we got on the north side of that little weir dam, where they scour out big, huge volumes of water, where the volume of water scours out big holes that's sealed up by all the cockeyed red clay, holds water, holds everything back so that mosquitoes come in there and they just boil the water from all the water that's standing around. Of course, now you can look at our places, you know, all the owners, the landowners right there. you won't find a bunch of trash or a bunch of things that's gonna hold water or make a mess or whatever. When we have something that's wrong, we fix it. We're proud of our place. And this is making it difficult for us to even sit out on our decks in the evening in the summertime, because the mosquitoes just eat us up. And besides that, you know, they shouldn't be doing that kind of damage to our land. So, sorry, I hope I didn't.
No, no, no. I just want to make sure you understand that on this phase that we're talking about today, the runoff is not even supposed to go in your area.
All I know is that there's sandbags is all through there. I can't tell you. I know that everything on the north side right there all drains toward me.
Mm-hmm.
Now everything here in this phase, I know they got intersections right here that are sandbagged up. I don't know exactly where all these sandbag intersections really tie into the main lines, which direction to go, north or south or whatever. But I know that well, you would think that intersections on these other streets here, these north and south streets, I'd say they probably tie into the one that going north now. He says it doesn't. Now I can't argue with that or anything, because I don't know exactly where they come from.
Well, it sounds like we already approved phase 1, which I think is causing the issues that you see,
Yeah.
and you're worried about when we move the sandbag. So I would like to sit down with you and Kevin, if I can, sometime. But I think this agenda item for this phase, I think that work's already done, and this doesn't affect that work that's affecting you, and this part is affecting the south part of it. So I think it'd be beneficial if we sat down with Kevin and had a conversation. Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, that'd be fine. If they show me that doesn't have anything to do with my direction, I'm fine with that.
Okay, yeah. So maybe after I'll get a hold of you and we'll set up a meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
My problem is that by approving this phase 2, we're doing it before the problems of phase 1 have been fixed. And the final plat was approved understanding that these problems were going to be fixed, and temporary sandbags are not a fix. And I just see we're rewarding for not finishing what was supposed to be done on phase 1. So that's why I have a problem with doing phase 2. And I mean, you see, it's 55 homes on 10 acres. We just approved 28 homes on 7 acres. And I know the realty companies are excited because it's just more and more homes being built, and I'm not against progress, but we've got to take care of the homes that have already been here before we let outside developers come in town and just cram as many into small areas of land, and the heck with all the drainage, because they don't live here and they're not going to deal with it. The homeowners will, and the ones that are around it will.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
you're the developer, is that right?
Yes, I'm with David Ewing with NWAL.
Sir, please come to the mic.
Okay.
Speaking
Yes,
to the mic.
And so this is a question probably for you, and you may want to consult with the civil engineers as well. I understand that you're here. Are you developing because this is an investment and you want some return on that investment, and it costs money to do things that will mitigate some of the problems that have been brought up. I do agree with Director Rissler that it seems tonight we're voting more on phase 2, which we're being told is not contributing to the issue that Mr. Farmer is seeing. But I'm just going to throw it out there. Is there anything else that you all feel like you could do to help with those issues that seem to be a result of maybe some of phase 1? Just throwing it out there. If we can work together and work things out, I'm all for it.
Very fair question, and I'm going to answer that in going over a little bit of history and covering everything here. So first, the detention pond is in phase 1, both of them. Oh, I'm sorry. The detention pond is in phase 1, and we are on that phase 2 where the water is going elsewhere. As far as the issues that Mr. Taylor had brought up on here, we did work with him, and we resolved those issues to both of our satisfaction. I suspect that's why he's not here tonight, but that is an assumption. Ms. Sled, I understand, if I'm understanding Mr. Farmer correctly, there is some riprap on the other side that goes onto their property a little bit. And Kevin had reached out to us about doing some work over there, in which we went and did. And I believe it was Mr. Sled, did say he was good with that riprap being there and sent a text to that effect, which I also have. So in our mind, we satisfied with Mr. Taylor. We satisfied the Sleds to the extent that they have communicated with us. Most of Mr. Sled's communication to us was, can you cut the grass? And I let him know at the time, hey, our landscape guy quit, so we're working on a new one. And then he since came out there and congratulated what I've been told from our landscape guy, that he's very pleased with the new guy keeping the grass cut next to his fence on our side of the property. So I was not aware of Mr. Farmer's issue until 4/11 yesterday when he gave me a call. And for this to be going on several months, I was a little surprised about that. We have in the past, Mr. Farmer raised an issue about the light from the roads of the cars coming in and maybe shining into the back of his house. So we did spend a considerable sum of money putting an additional fence in that location to block that traffic over there. He's mentioned about the lights in the general neighborhood, and I know there's always the piece, can I see the light versus how much light's actually getting off the property and getting into those weeds. But on the street lights, those were the cities put those up. So we've done, moved some other dirt around at his request, taking care of those things. So I was a little surprised when this came up yesterday. I do want to address the issue of the sandbags. We are not putting sandbags blocking anything. When you hear sandbags, you think of a hurricane's coming through. We're putting sandbags up to keep floodwaters to get to our house. Those, depending on what you call it, different people call it different things. Sometimes they're called wattles, sometimes they're called silt socks. Those are part of the standard SWIP control measures that every developer has to put down. That is done to filter the sediment that is coming with the water towards the storm structure to keep the sediment from getting into the drain. It lets the water through. So the water has already been getting through these wattles, silk socks, whatever you want to call them, for months. We've had this subdivision paved for months. We just haven't gotten to the final platting process. So there's no sandbags blocking anything else that is, when they're removed, going to create this deluge of flood on anybody's property. As far as the outlet structure itself, to put it in perspective, since I've seen it many times, we have a very large pond there, and in that pond is designed with that outlet structure to hold water for a while, let the water flow out at a slower rate. So it takes this huge pond, it comes to an outlet structure, and then I would think, and Taylor can correct me if I'm wrong, it's about a 6-inch slit about this wide that lets the water go through. So instead of having this huge structure that just lets the water pour through, it's narrowed through something smaller to slow it down to get over there. So I think we have done a good job at addressing with the neighbors. I know Mr. Yancey to the west, he's very pleased with what we're doing. When Mr. Taylor spoke last time, that was at a hearing where we were adjusting the property line so that we can give some property to adjacent neighbors, because their fence was over on our property, and we wanted to make sure that we didn't just go tear down their fence. So we said, we'll just replat that, give them the property once we build out the neighborhood so they can have it. So I think we've taken a lot of steps to mitigate issues, work with neighbors, and get things resolved. And Kevin's done a great job when he calls us, tells us if there's an issue, if anybody's called, and we get out there and address it. And I believe Kevin can speak to that as much as you would like as well. So we think we've tried to help everybody to the extent we can, and you know, we want to be a good neighbor to the community, the neighbors that are immediately around us, and think, you know, it's a very good offering and improvement for the community.
I remember the fence. I remember the fence, and I'm glad to hear you guys put it up. I remember that was with the first phase, and that was one of the complaints that was brought up. I'm glad you guys took care of that.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? If not, then I will ask for a motion to approve Resolution 54-23, item F.
I will so move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Blair.
Yes.
Smiley.
Yes.
Wiles.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Missler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate that for your being here and your input. And next is item I, which is the resolution 57-23. And Travis?
Good evening, Board, Madam Mayor. Travis Cheney, Parks and Recreation Manager. Staff have requested to pull item I off of consent just to bring one thing to y'all's attention. Late last week, staff received a request from the applicant to modify some wordage very slightly in the memorandum of understanding. We spoke with the city attorney who said this is not, material to the agreement. I'll give you an example of something that's been changed. We wanted to let y'all know that if you approve this memorandum of understanding, the document that the mayor will sign differs very slightly from the documents that y'all have in front of you. To give you an example, in places where the property is mentioned in the memorandum of understanding, the applicant requested we change that to location. So very minor things. Change the heading of one of the exhibits to read, instead of just Exhibit A, it says star marks the property designated for Siloam Springs Hub placement. City attorney believed these were very minor changes. We've made them, but just so you're aware, the document the mayor would be signing if y'all approve this, there are a couple of minor changes, and if you'd like, I can send those to you, but they're, again, not material to the memorandum of understanding. And I stand ready to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Travis. Directors? Yes, David.
Travis, I'm really confused why a hub for gravel biking is going to be next to our amphitheater. I've looked at the website for Runway 3, and their marking of the hub is actually at the intersection of Jefferson and Maxwell up by the library. But the picture you've given us shows that it's down just a little ways north of the amphitheater. Looking at the trail that they've marked, almost the entire Siloam Trail is in the state of Oklahoma. And I just don't understand why gravel biking would go down Broadway, down University. I understand around the JBU, and there's definitely west of JBU some gravel biking, but on our streets, really?
Sure. So two of those questions. One, the location of the gravel hub. I think the location that you may see online was part of an older discussion, and when it came time to sort out this MOU, folks felt that shifting it from the library parking lot just down the hill to the amphitheater put it closer to a restroom. And so that's one of the reasons it was moved. But to answer that question, I might need to step back of why this location was chosen as a gravel hub. So the qualifications that Runway Group is looking for to denote an area as a gravel hub, and again, they're doing this in Pea Ridge, Bentonville, maybe Gravette, I'd have to look on the list again, but several communities throughout Northwest Arkansas. The things that they're looking for as a hub is a place where multiple folks can all park together, kind of meet up to go off and ride. They'd like it to be close to a restroom, so folks can use the restroom when they come to and from wherever they're parking and going off, because sometimes they're riding 70 or 100 miles. So the idea is you come back, you've got one central place. And then, again, because we're trying to, one, sort of draw tourism to Siloam and get people into our town, the idea is you would like for these hubs to be close to somewhere for folks to eat, somewhere for folks to, go and get a drink, somewhere close to folks to shop. And so, if the hub is kind of out in the county or somewhere, off on a gravel road, it doesn't satisfy those needs that they're looking for as a hub. And so this spot had great parking, restroom, really close to eateries nearby. And then from that location, you can take off any number of directions. You can go west, you can go out towards Weddington, you can go north towards Gentry. It was a good central location. And yes, when you're doing gravel riding, you're usually riding on pavement for some stretch. You're connecting from some gravel road across a highway to another gravel road. Same thing here. They start downtown, but from there you can go north to Gentry and get on gravel roads, go to Colcord, or go clear out to Little Kansas. So the Runway group felt that this location satisfied the needs that they're looking for in these gravel hubs that are going in various places in Northwest Arkansas.
Well, I don't believe taking up our parking next to the park is a great use for the cyclist to be taking up all that parking, because that's the choice you've made for a gravel biking hub to be. Gravit's the only other city that has theirs in the city, because it's a small rural community and there's not a whole lot of eateries there. But Bentonville does not, and Pea Ridge does not. Theirs are not even close to the downtown. So I still am lost as to why we would be encouraging people to gather to go biking and leave their vehicles in all that parking that's usually used for people to come use the amphitheater or the park, when they're going to get on their bikes and go somewhere else. I think it's a waste of good parking, in that we could put this hub anywhere, really, where there's some area. In fact, when I saw that on their hub, it was up at the intersection of Jefferson and Maxwell, I thought, oh, they're going to park where all the parking across the street from the library is, because there's a ton of parking there. It's the old hospital parking. And northeast, there's also a city parking lot. So I thought, okay, that makes sense. But then on our thing, it actually shows the hub is right there next to the amphitheater. So I'm just saying there's very, very limited parking right there on facing the creek. We've already dealt with some of the problems of the way signs that the biking company tried to do several years ago, where they rearranged the place to drive down there, and so I just don't think that's a really great place for bicyclists to gather, because it's very, very limited parking as it is. We have tons of people that come down and use the park, and I don't want the people that come to use the park have to fight for parking with a bunch of people that have decided to gather there and leave their cars there so they can go biking in Oklahoma. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
I'll answer one quick question, and then we do have a representative from Runway Group who may want to answer that question more thoroughly. There's parking along Maxwell there. There's parking up in the across from the library, and then also adjacent to that hub. We do have an agreement with the Methodist Church. There's a pretty large parking lot there that we share with them for all of our events. That's also used for public parking. But I may have someone from Runway Group answer a couple more questions.
Can I ask one question real quick?
Sure.
Where is the hub in Bentonville?
I'll let Runway answer that one.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you guys for having me today. I'm JT Guerin, and I'm our Deputy Director of Communications at Runway Group. Thank you to Travis and Parks and Rec for partnering with us and Discover Siloam, as we've been working on the Rural Recreational Roads program now for the last couple of years. I'll just kind of talk broadly about the program a little bit and sort of the aims of what we're trying to do. And I'll leave the Siloam specific questions to Travis as I'm stepping in for a colleague who's on maternity leave, so go easy on me. But what are we trying to do? Ultimately, we are trying to drive economic opportunities through cycling to communities that are otherwise not maybe seeing some of the economic benefits. So we're all well aware of bicyclists on our roads everywhere, and mountain biking is growing in popularity, but there are communities across the state and the region that have an amenity all over, and that's gravel roads, which also happens to be the fastest growing form of cycling in the world right now. It's actually not mountain biking, it's not road cycling, it's gravel cycling. Guess what we got a lot of in Arkansas? We got a lot of gravel roads in the natural state, and a lot of rural communities that are looking for an opportunity to drive economic actions in their towns, and we believe this is an asset that can help do that. We have major events coming to Northwest Arkansas and across the state that are gravel cycling events. A major event was just announced a couple of weeks ago called the Graveler that will go from Fayetteville all the way to Jonesboro on gravel roads, on bikes, which is an exciting opportunity for the state. Specific to this program and this location, what are we aiming to do with our hub locations? We're trying to drive commerce to local businesses, and the routes that these folks go on will take you all over. We have routes in Bentonville, and that hub location is in downtown Bentonville. We have routes that will take you into Missouri from downtown Bentonville. We do have a number of routes that do go through Oklahoma, even predominantly through Oklahoma, that are based out of this recommended Siloam hub location. But we also have routes that are based out of that hub location that stay exclusively in Arkansas. But the idea is being that when the cyclist begins their route and they end their route, that's when they're going to spend their money. That's when they're going to stop and get a bite. That's when they're going to grab a brew. And we hope that will happen in Siloam. And we found a willing partner here with Discover Siloam and the Parks and Rec Department, and that has driven some of these decisions that you see here today.
Madam Mayor, real quick for
Mindy?
so you said the hub in Bentonville is downtown Bentonville, and the hubs in the other two places where are they are in relation to their downtown areas?
That is an excellent question, of which I'm going to look at the website to refer to make sure I get that correct.
Well, I was kind of looking at it, and
I consider the town square in Bentonville to be downtown, and the hub in Bentonville is about 10 blocks south of the Bentonville Square.
Hang on a second.
The one in Gravett is right in the middle of downtown because it's a small downtown.
I generally would consider downtown the square as well, but does Bentonville extend their downtown area past the square?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so
In terms of all the restaurants and stuff is what I was talking about.
yeah, so a good reference point for where the Bentonville hub location might be is it's kind of like if you kept going past the home office location, like you're going towards the new home office location in the south downtown area. So it's not immediately on the square, but it's just south of the square. Next to, do you know where the cute little train station park is? Anyone familiar with that location? It's just kind of south of that, north of 6th Street. So in the downtown corridor, but not directly on the square.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Reed.
Travis, gentlemen, I love the location. I think when you look at correlating bicycling with driving a little bit of our economics, with allowing those from outside of our city to come and see who we are and what we are, I really like the location. I think you did a good job placing it there. Admittedly, I don't know much about being able to have a store or a restaurant or what have you where you can pull right up in front and walk right in. I don't think that's what our downtown is about. You may have to walk a block, and in doing so, I think this hub is very well put. There's so much from there. Yeah, you may have to walk up the hill to the library parking lot. I think if you're gonna bicycle 80 miles, I'm for you on that. I think you can do it. So I think where the hub rests, it speaks to me of, let's be a part of this community. Let's get together in here and let's enjoy this town. So I applaud you for it. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
My daughter is a gravel biker in Bentonville. She also has a bike rental company. And she likes that hub. Actually, is there something called the hub in Bentonville?
There is. It's unrelated, but there is a place called the hub. Yes, ma'am.
And I think I know where it is. So
yeah.
I like this idea because I think it brings people together. I don't have a problem with where you're wanting to put it, and I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, David.
I don't have a problem with it at all, except that I don't think the place you're putting it near our amphitheater is a good location, in that we have already tried to make our park and our amphitheater a gathering place for art, talent, shows, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And where you currently have it on your website at the intersection of Jefferson and Maxwell seems like a much better place. There is tons of parking to the northeast and right there on the street. Our library is literally where our hospital used to be, so there's tons of parking. And it just seems like it would be the ability to have a lot more people gather there to go biking than along this very narrow area that really is only one side of the street where you're talking about. It's only on one side and it's angled, and there's maybe 7 or 8 parking places. That's it. So I don't think that it's a great location simply for that. If you're wanting to gather people together and have a place for them, I'm assuming people are going to bring their car to a place, take their bike off, and then go bicycling, right?
In a lot of instances, yes.
So they're going to need a place to park. If you have 25 people show up, they're not all going to be able to get at that hub. Most especially if they decide to do it on a Saturday and there's a Saturday show that night. I just don't want people competing with our residents for a parking spot. And yes, there's a restroom right down the hill from where you have it on your website. It's right next to where you have put it on our packet. But where you put it on our packet is right next to a restroom, but very small number of parking places. So I'm saying where I'm talking about it at the intersection of Jefferson and Maxwell, you ride your bike just down the hill and you're at the restroom. So I just don't understand it.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I am not against the sign at all, but I do have to agree with David. I think the location chosen is not ideal. He is correct. If we were to move it somewhere around, I'm thinking on the south side of the library parking lot, it's plenty big enough. And if we're going to use the argument, well, people can walk just down the hill, up the hill, whatever direction they're going for extra parking, again, it would be better for a group to use a more concentrated area of parking than it would be individuals coming to the park or right in that immediate area. So I'm all for the sign if it will be moved. If it's going to stay in that location, I will not support that.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Mindy, and then Betsy, back to you.
I guess I don't really have a huge preference one way or the other. I will defer to you all as the ones who have really thought through this and what you think the people that do the gravel biking would find. Well, you've thought through it on both sides, I'm assuming. You've thought through it from both the side of the parking spaces that will be taken from citizens wherever, and then also where it would be best for the gravel bikers, understand bathrooms, all that. What I'm going to share right now is just sort of an epiphany that I was made aware of the other day. It was sort of enlightening. Went into a little cafe downtown, and there were 3 or 4 ladies there enjoying lunch, and I stopped and talked to them for a few minutes, and we were just talking about some of the things downtown and the parking. And one said, "Isn't it great that it's so hard to find a parking place downtown, because it means people love coming to our downtown?" I thought, wow, hadn't really thought about that. Now, in terms of, I understand what's being said by Director Allen and Director Wiles. I do understand that. When we have had the big events, the 4th Fridays, the concerts, I always park up at the library and come down as opposed to parking down there. And so any parking that bikers may use down there is not going to affect me, and I know a lot of other people park up there too, because it's kind of hard to find a parking place even up there when there's a lot of people at these events. So I don't know that it's going to matter that much or not, but I just kind of wanted to share that it's hard to find a place in downtown to park. Isn't that great? That means people love our downtown. So.
Thank you, Mindy. Betsy?
I tend to agree with Ken and David on where it goes, and because parking is limited and you've got that great big hill. So when our citizens want to go enjoy the park, the amphitheater downtown, we've got elderly. They're not youthful and in great shape. Well, some might be, for the bike rides and people with special needs. I mean, parking, handicap parking, like we've discussed, is already an issue in that area. So my concern is more for the people who aren't as able-bodied. That takes away a lot of parking spaces. If there are 25 people and they're going to be gone for hours biking 60, 70, 80 miles, whatever, that takes away from people who aren't able to be as physically active, and they're going to drive through thinking they're going to park and enjoy the park or amphitheater, and they're not going to be able to. So it does make more sense to me, like the able-bodied people, if they need to run down the hill to use the bathroom, that just makes more sense to me for the citizens who aren't able to be as physically active. So anyway,
There are restrooms up the hill too, aren't there?
No.
Right by the water fountains? Are there not restrooms there?
They are. I don't know, by the splash pad.
By the splash pad,
Oh,
yeah.
up on the other side of the library.
There are restrooms
There are
there.
restrooms.
That's
There
on
are
the other
restrooms
side of
up.
the library.
Right, but
What I'm talking about is the intersection of Jefferson and Maxwell, where they have it on their website as having the hub, where the parking is.
Yes. Yes, Lisa.
I do have a question. Did you guys consider other locations, and did you think about did you have discussions on the parking, the upper space and the lower space, and kind of what was that?
I'll actually let Travis actually was more engaged on this issue than I was. Like I said, I'm kind of stepping in. I'll actually let him answer that.
And again, frankly, I'd say staff doesn't have a strong opinion. You're totally right. The first place that was proposed was up at the library parking lot, which is, of course, there's lots of parking up there. Again, the only downsides are it is somewhat, again, the goal of the program is to get people as close to restaurants, restrooms, and doing business as possible. And so just coming down that hill to where you are in eyesight, like from where you're parking, either at the Methodist Church parking lot or along that street on Maxwell, where you are looking directly at businesses. You can see Fratelli's, you can see Poor John's, you can see Ivoryville when they're right in front of you. It's just a lot more conducive to, hey, I see that place that I wasn't really looking for. I will just walk right to it. It's right next to the restroom. Those are the pros of that spot. But again, it's a matter of less than 100 yards. So I think if that's the thing holding folks up,
Is that the only location though? Like, did you consider in front of Parks and Rec? Where you're currently?
No, and again, I think a lot of that had to.
If you walk that way, there's
Sure.
businesses.
I will say a lot of these discussions happened before I got here, so I can't, and folks that were having them are gone, so I can't personally speak to those. But I can say that it did seem that for what this initiative was trying to do, that seemed like a really good spot, somewhere in the center of town where you can quickly get, north, south, east, west. Again, whether it's near the restroom at the amphitheater in sight of those businesses or whether it's just up the hill, I would think that it's, if that's something that's going to stand or fall on, it's not that big of a difference. I don't think anybody has any problem changing it.
I do. How many handicap parking spaces do we have down there? Because that
Almost
has been an
none.
issue.
There may be one at the most. There may be zero.
So maybe we should consider having more. I brought the conversation out because
You mean along the creek?
down there by the Chautauqua Theater, right there. And if we need more, I mean, we agreed to be, help individuals with disability and help the senior citizens. And if you're asking them to walk even further, that's kind of going against what we said we stand for.
And Madam
But
Mayor,
one's not enough.
I've already requested, they're already supposed to be looking at adding more.
So
there is
it would
only
take away
one.
your spots anyway, because you can't have all these people parking in the handicap parking spots.
I think moving this up the hill, I think that's great. I think we want people to come to Siloam and spend their money, and we want to have a great experience. And if that's where you guys think it's going to be better for the community and better for business owners, that's the whole point. So we're totally good with that.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
perhaps we could have another sign up there pointing people down to some of our great businesses downtown.
We have a sign up there by
And-
the electric.
Okay, there you go.
The cars that
And
you go in.
we will have, and now I've kind of lost it, but there will be like a QR code on the sign that'll have more information, and we're going to be updating our website to call out specific businesses at these hub locations, recommending folks to go and stop. And that currently is not reflected on our website. I don't think at any of our hubs, but hopefully it'll even be a direct call out on that sign as you scan that, and your hand's shaking because you've been riding 150 miles on a bicycle, and then you'll be able to go down and load up, refuel.
So, I guess Travis, do you have something else you want to add?
I guess my request would be for guidance from y'all, whether you would like us to, take a vote on the MOU as presented, which would be, again, on Maxwell, folks will be parking at the parking lot we share with the Methodist Church, which I don't have that number, 20 spaces or so, plus along Maxwell. I can't say for sure how many folks come at any one time. I'd be surprised if it was more, unless there was some special event that we would be permitting. I'd be surprised if it's more than, 5 cars at any given time. Or again, with staff, as your pleasure, can move it up the hill to the library parking lot. Again, there's of course pros and cons to both, and we'll go the direction y'all want us to go.
Do we need if we go to vote on it, do we need to say the MOU has to be changed to?
Yes, I would ask then first if you have an amendment to this resolution 5723 for the.
Well, do we have a motion on the floor yet?
No, we do not.
Madam Mayor, do we have to then specify the location then if we're gonna do an amendment?
Jay, I will defer to you.
We need to make sure that's
How do we need to do
where
that?
we want it.
Well, there needs to be a motion on the floor.
Okay.
And then an amendment can be proposed. Vote would first be on the amendment, and then on the main motion.
Okay.
Would be as amended if it passes, or as it stands if the amendment does not pass.
So you need a motion to approve the original resolution.
Correct.
That is where we start. But Alan, do you have something that you would like to say?
Yeah, Board, if this would make it easier for you, I recommend to pull letter I, and I will get everything corrected and get that back to you at a later time.
That would be best, really.
Yeah.
That would be the best, is my recommendation.
I make that we.
So we will have, you would like to table item I, resolution 5723 until our next meeting in October. Is that correct? Which is October the 3rd, I believe?
It will be the next meeting when we get it prepared.
Okay. So do I have that motion?
So moved.
And
Second.
we are not saying no to a sign.
No.
We are saying just relocate, guys.
We want to get it together and make sure that everyone's happy with the location. That's all. Perfect. I think everyone is in favor of it. Just want to get the location right. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So then we have a motion to table. We have a motion and a second to table. So roll call.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Blair,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Wiles,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next is our staff reports, which is the administrator's report. Alan?
Board and Mayor, Alan Gilbert, City Administrator. I have expenditures to report in excess of $30,000. The first one is $36,820.48 for 8,000 gallons of 100 LL fuel at the airport. Per resolution 3423, an expense of $83,550 for 7,500 rolls of 1/3 neutral primary domestic wire electric department. $99,840 for 260 AMI water meters for the water department. In my report, very excited. We just finished up the second annual Hispanic Festival. A huge success. Went about 6.5 hours. And our numbers show that we approximately had 2,500 attendees. That's nearly a 60% increase over the last year's. Those attendees stayed longer than last year than expected. Participant and vendors alike reported they were very pleased with the event. We look forward to learning what worked, and we'll have after-action meetings and as the festival continues to grow. The popular fall cleanup service will be October 2nd through the 6th this year. Approved items will be collected from the curb on residents. Regular trash day that week. A list of items is available on our website. The new Woka Park, I was privileged to go out there and look at it, and it was fantastic. Opened this past weekend. This month's Fourth Friday event is themed Hometown Heroes and features 449 Rewind on stage at Chautauqua Amphitheater. The first ever Love Siloam event takes place this Saturday, September 23rd. This service day is an initiative of collaborative of local nonprofits and businesses united with goals and aspiring Siloam Springs residents to make a positive impact on their community. I would also just like to ask the board, I think we've talked in our individual meetings, if the board would consider moving our directors' meetings to a time of 5:30. In my opinion, that would make it easier on board members, citizens getting off at work at 5 o'clock, and staff. If you're interested in that, we can discuss it at the pre-agenda, or you can let me know tonight. If you approve, I would get an ordinance for that change started, if you want to have any discussion about that. And the last thing I have is just an update. When Attorney Lancaster was here, we received his one resolution yesterday. There's a typo on there. That's my mistake. And we sent his resolution to AML for review, and then a second resolution ratifying payments made today to Main Street of Siloam Springs. I had our attorney get a resolution prepared. That was also sent to AML. And as soon as we get those two resolutions back, I will get them to the board for review, and we can discuss. My hope is to get everything back to put it on the October 3rd meeting.
Thank you, sir. So first, board, I will ask you if you have any comments about the change of time for the directors' meeting, or if you would prefer to take time to consider that and then letting the administrator know at a later date. Do I have any input one way or the other?
I'd like, personally think we need to leave it at where it is, but I'm open to discuss. I understand the reasoning behind it, but I think there are too many people who could and would come to the meetings that may not get off till 6 o'clock. And if we move it, of course, they won't be able to get here in a timely manner. So I'm open to discuss, but that's kind of the way I'm leaning right now.
Anyone else? Or would you prefer to let the administrator know at a later date?
Doesn't matter to me, Madam Mayor. I kind of agree with Ken that we need to accommodate the public, and if 6:30 is better. I do believe with the pre-agenda meetings that our administrator has started, that these meetings will go quicker. Although tonight is not such a great example. I thought tonight would be quicker, but we took almost everything off the consent agenda too. But I think in the future, they most probably will go quicker, and throughout the rest of the year, we're not going to have budget meetings during even as a workshop before the meeting, so I think the 6:30 is an okay time, but we may want to split the difference and say 6.
And if I may, I would be
Anyone
good
else?
with 6. It's just, for staff, we're here at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then people try to run and get something to eat. No one really ever makes it. We're here till 6:30. And then I've had citizens tell me that, they're trying to find things to do because they could come straight from work, but then they go home or they go do workouts. And then these meetings have gone into 10, 11 o'clock at night, because even after pre-agenda, we're here still for 8 o'clock at night, just for pretty much a consent agenda. So if we could split that in the middle at 6 o'clock, but again, it's the board's pleasure.
Might want to try a couple of different times and see what works.
I am okay with 6 o'clock. I want whatever is comfortable for the citizens. I want us to accommodate our citizens and what they feel that they can come. When I was on the planning commission, I believe they met at 4:30. We didn't always have a really good turnout of just an audience per se. And there are some people here from the planning commission. They might be able to address that. But I think 6 o'clock is a good time.
Maybe 6:07.
6:07, 6:02.
I would like to say, when I worked for Craft and Toll and City of Fayetteville, there's times I didn't get home till 6:15. And so how many of our residents actually work outside of Siloam and have to travel over to the corridor and then try to come back and be ready for the meeting?
I see it both ways.
Yeah, I see it both ways, and I see staff having to stay, but we also want citizens to have a voice. And they only, they email us and they text us and they call us but sometimes they actually want to come to the meetings, and I don't want to deter that in any way.
I'm not sure we'll ever be able to accommodate all the citizens. I think we just have to find something that works for the majority. But I still think 6 would accommodate people better, and staff, if they're having to stay till 6:30 to start, then staff at 6, it's taking a half an hour, boosting their time up, so.
I think 5:30 may be pushing it because of the people that are trying to either get home or go straight from work to come to the meeting, that don't then have a chance to run home and get a bite to eat. So,
Like David, I think we should try it.
yeah, let's try it at 6 or
And if that doesn't,
6:07 or 2,
And
whatever, and
maybe,
see how it goes.
maybe who's ever listening, who's ever here, could email the board and give their thoughts, board@siloamsprings.com, and let us know how you're feeling, because really, it's about the citizens.
That's what we all agree on, is it's about
So then I kind of hear that perhaps you would like to wait until you have some input from the citizens and then come back and let the administrator know kind of what you've gotten and what you've decided on. Does that sound right to everyone? Is everyone agreeable with that? Ellen? Okay. So that is how we will leave that then. So next we will move to the director's reports. I would like to start by saying first, this last week we had a couple of milestones in our city. Well, a couple of our industries that have been here a long time was celebrated. Jetstream for 75 years in this community and serving a lot of people, not only here but across the nation. They provide a service that means quality of life for people, water, sewer, all of those things that people enjoy and need in their homes. And so I celebrate that with them and congratulate them on that and thank them for supporting our community. Also, Lazy Boy, they celebrated 50 years. Because both of the celebrations were on the same day at the same time, I could not go to both, so I attended the one at Jetstream, and our Vice Mayor, David, attended the ceremony at Lazy Boy. So I'll let him maybe address that a little bit more whenever we come to him. But congratulations to both of those companies, and thank you for your support of this community. The other is the Hispanic Heritage Festival. was great. It was beautiful weather, and it was just the music was wonderful. Everyone was very seemed to be upbeat and happy and enjoyed the whole thing. So and I did too. It was great. I was glad I was able to go. So thank you to all of our staff, because I know they worked long and hard, and it was a collaborative effort between Main Street, the Chamber, our staff. There was a lot went into that, and I appreciate all of that very much, and thank you all for doing that for our citizens and our community. With that, I will move to the directors, and David, I'm going to begin with you tonight, and Mindy, we will end with you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I did want to congratulate Lazy Boy. They are almost a 100-year-old company. It's like 94 years, and 50 of those years they've been in Siloam Springs. And so it was quite a big deal to have their CEO and several of their other officers here for a huge party to celebrate. They had a cake shaped like a couch. I actually thought it was a real doll couch. It looked so real. It was made by Rick's Bakery, and I said, well, I want that pillow whenever they started cutting it. But it was really amazing to watch, the CEO get up and speak, and the VP of manufacturing speak. And I've had two cousins that have worked their whole lives there, so it's a great company. I was on the board when they built that plant, and of course, everybody still refers to the old Lazy Boy plant as the old Lazy Boy plant. It always will be. But I thank them for the corporate donation of the land for the Lazy Boy baseball fields, because that has been a huge boon to our youth and adults for many, many years, and it was a nice present from the company to the city, and I appreciated that as well. So thank you, Madam Mayor, for asking me to attend that. And I do want to thank Jetstream as well. I've had a lot of friends and their family that have worked there as well, and it's also been known for many years as a great company with great benefits to work for. I attended the pre-opening of the WOCA, the weekend before this last weekend, and I just got to say congratulations to GRDA, Crossland Construction for their hard work, the Walton Family Foundation. It was an amazing thing to see how, well, we saw it halfway through when we saw it without the water and the rock had been cut. But to see it with the water in it, and to see how you can maneuver Mother Nature to be accommodating to create rapids and everything. And yeah, I went down and Randy Torres videoed me, and you could hear me going, oh my gosh. It was a lot of fun. It really was. And I hope if you have not done it, try to go out while they're still open. And I understand next year that they have the ability to change the flow of water. Next year, they're going to up the flow of water. So they were not going to do it this year yet, but because they're still getting the everything worked out. But it was a lot of fun, and it's a huge thing. They expect 80,000 visitors a year to be coming to visit that. So it's a very nice thing. And then I wanted to say thank you to our staff for working so hard to do the pre-agenda meeting. I thought it was very helpful. The city of Fort Smith has been doing it for many years, and I thought it worked out well, and I appreciate staff coming together to do that. That's all I have. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, David. Before I move to you, Carol, I do want to say one more thing about Jetstream. This was something I did not know, that whenever they first started, they hired Tom Gregory to work for them right out of high school, and his job was to sell hula hoops that they were making.
Really?
So that I did not know that, and I wanted to share that with everyone, because I'm pretty sure not everyone that lives here knows that they started selling hula hoops. So I think that's pretty amazing. So
I never could do one of those.
So Carol?
One thing I would like the board to keep in mind on the top shelf, the East Main project and the repairs of Sager Creek. I do want that to be continued. I also want to congratulate Lazy Boy and Jetstream. I think it's wonderful that we have those companies here. They contribute a lot to our community. I'm going to also ask again for donations to the animal shelter for the chews and the toys. And if you have any old bath towels or bath rugs, they can really use those. Those, especially in the cat areas, they can put those in their little cages and different things and make them feel a lot more comfortable. It's almost that time, and I know Main Street is going to have the trick or treat. I just want to get everybody thinking about that because that's always a fun time for the kids. Let me see. Oh, at the animal shelter, they're always needing volunteers to walk the dog. So if you don't have a pet and you'd like to be associated with a pet, come to the shelter. Take them out for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, because they would really enjoy it, and I think you would too. Let me see. Don't want to forget Fourth Friday, but we've already talked about that. So thank you. Everybody have a good night.
Thank you, Carol. Reed?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to give a good shout out to Discover Siloam. If you haven't been online to look at that, I think it's an awesome collaboration, and in how it tells our story. And I think they do a wonderful job with it, and I encourage everyone to take a look at that if you're wanting to know what's happening, when things are, how to get some questions answered. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Lisa?
Congratulations to Jetstream and Lazy Boy, and congratulations to the Rotary. They're celebrating their 100th year, and they've done a lot for our community, and I want to make sure we say congratulations to them.
Thank you. Betsy?
First of all, I wanted to mention the audio-visual, which you're not the only one who's brought it up. We did, or I wasn't on the board, but the board approved new equipment last year, and in the next few months, it's going to start being installed. I assume that's correct. Last time I checked. So yeah, exactly. You know, there's always the order and supply chain these days, but it's supposed to start in the very near future. I was also going to piggyback on what Director Smiley had said. What I'm trying to do is, like, when I buy something for one of my animals, and I have plenty, I'll pick something up for the shelter. Like, I was at Tractor Supply today, so I went to their clearance and I picked up some things for the shelter and dropped it off. If the shelter isn't open, there's a bench there, and they said just leave stuff there on the bench. There is someone there every day. Even if the shelter's closed, there are people there who'll come pick it up. And like Director Smiley mentioned, taking the dogs for walks. Maybe you can't have a dog, but it's a great way to interact and have the benefits of having a dog, which lowers blood pressure. Studies have also shown it lowers cholesterol, helps with loneliness, anxiety, all those things, and it's great for the dogs. And then last thing, the senior center, I haven't given them a plug for a while. The senior center does a lot of awesome stuff. Like on Thursdays, they have their outings. Next Thursday, they're going to the Health Expo in Bentonville. Besides, they have watercolor classes, pottery. Stanley Church has been doing some fruit cutting stuff. That's really cool. So check them out. Remember, they provide a taxi service, as does the city. And I think that's it.
Thank you. Ken?
Nothing specific. I could go through the list as it's come around here. I'll just say, you know, I echo the sentiments that have been stated. We have such a great community, industry, businesses, whatever. It's great. The change of season, I think, it is somewhat safe to say is here now, and I am pretty excited about that. But the last few evenings, just taking a walk through the neighborhoods, and you can already see colors changing. There's seem to be a lot more people out. People's attitudes have improved, and we just have a great place to live. And I appreciate our citizens. I appreciate our staff, and just want everybody to enjoy. Thank you.
Mindy?
Keep in mind that I said nothing last time, so bear with me this time. Don't have a whole lot here. But I did write it down just so I would have my thoughts together better. There has been a lot of talk again recently about improvements to East Main Street and Sager Creek. And at our last regular meeting, staff asked for direction related to having Crafton Toll complete the final design work on the East Main Street improvement project. And then at our pre-agenda meeting, staff presented a request to spend money on design work for both structural repairs and beautification projects for Sager Creek specifically. The cost of design work for both projects was high, and the work itself would be a lot higher. We know that. Yet for both projects, staff suggested there might be grants available. That's a good thing, and that's something the staff should be commended for. And I appreciate that you all were looking for grants and looking for ways to be able to apply for those grants and be eligible to apply for those grants. So thank you. While I do agree that many streets and sidewalks need repaired and drainage issues need to be fixed, I also think we need to be thinking about the positive economic impact of having a desirable downtown area. And I don't think I'm the only one who thinks that. In fact, during the meetings to discuss East Main Street improvements, there was a lot of support for it. I suspect we may still have meeting minutes from those meetings or recordings. I would like for the board to have some of that information, if there's a way to pull some of that together, just some of the comments that were made at those meetings, just so we can kind of have a refresher of where people were in their thinking on that particular project. I know there was also a lot of support for Sager Creek improvements. In fact, those improvements were the recommendations of a committee that was formed specifically to study the Sager Creek needs. During one of these last couple of meetings, I thanked staff for looking to the future. I also stated that we may have to put off projects that may be considered more wants than needs, but that I do hope at some point, and I still feel this way, that we can get past either or. We can either do this or we can do that, but we can't do both. Drainage areas, streets, and sidewalks will be in constant need of maintenance and repair, and we need to do what we can to continue doing the maintenance and the repair. But in my opinion, that doesn't mean we ignore opportunities for enhancing the heart of our town. There are citizens of Siloam who love the downtown area just as much as others dislike it. There's citizens on both sides. During just the past few months, hundreds, if not thousands, and it is thousands, of Siloam citizens have enjoyed the First Friday events, concerts in the amphitheater, prom picture taking. If you've had a child that's gone to any of the area high schools, you know they love to go downtown to take their pictures in the parks. And then most recently, as we've already talked about, the Hispanic Heritage Festival, which was awesome. Thank you all who participated and planned that. I got there about 6 o'clock and was not able to find a parking space. Finally did, and walked around, spent a little bit too much money with the vendors, but just really enjoyed it. And what was most enjoying about it to me was that everybody else was enjoying it so much. It was just such a neat thing. Speaking of downtown, there are many who support Main Street Siloam as well, and I think we need to be reminded of that. We are a town that claims to be friendly and welcoming. We need to meet up to that claim. We don't have to agree on everything, but we can mutually respect each other as equal citizens of our great town. And with that, I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.